going to let that go here. And then we're going to be going live here shortly. So we got a nice little music jingly happening here. And all right, come on. Come on, LinkedIn. And I think, we're right on time there. So here we go. And let's just make sure this is muted so we don't have echoes all over the place. And just checking the audio levels here. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this Friday. What is it? November 22nd episode of Boss Rush. My name is Chris Milicinos. I'm the principal evangelist for video games and immersive technologies over here at AWS. And with me today is
Susan Cummings. And I can't decide if you just glitched out, Chris, as you were introducing, or if it was me.
Oh, it was probably me.
But yeah, I'm Susan Cummings, been in the game industry long time. Run a couple studios in the UK, and excited to be here with my very dear old friend, Chris.
Aw, thank you so much. And I'm excited to see you too. And so Dean and Mark are away doing all the things that need to be done, apparently. And so they're going to be out today, but we're going to hold down the fort. And, I just love the fact that we get to, on Fridays, ease into the weekend with some video game news discussion and hot topics and all those things. So I'm super excited to see you, Susan. I know we missed you last week.
But a lot, too much. I'm sorry.
No, there's nothing to be sorry about. You're out doing big things, and I can't wait, for you to share with us when the time is right about all the crazy stuff that you're doing, because crazy as in the best, coolest stuff, as you always do. And I'm just so glad that we get to spend some time together with each other and with our friends here on LinkedIn and YouTube, right? Make sure that you go ahead and repost the link to this on your LinkedIn page would be great. Let's go ahead and jump in. And I guess we should start by, hey, thanks, Sean. Welcome back. That not to me, that's to Susan. Welcome back, Susan.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. And as we always do, why don't we start off and talk a little bit about what we've been. Well, actually, we always end on what we've been playing. We typically jump in on Dean's biggest news stories of the day. But so with Dean gone here, I will defer to my colleague here, Susan. Tell me what has been going on in games that is piquing your interest right now.
Well, my interest is piqued by the fact that I'm starting to see investment announcement again in the game industry. Like in the last week or two, I could actually count them on a full hand, like at least 5 deals have been announced. And Play Ventures announced their new fund, and I'm seeing people like VCs hiring for people. Like, dare I hope that there's a glimmer out there, not like a full-on light, but like a poke of light.
Yeah.
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, and that was one of the big stories that we wanted to highlight today. Yeah, Play Ventures raised $140 million in the second fund to invest in games and consumer startups, right? Really cool.
Yeah, it was great to see. I thought it was their third, to be fair. So I don't know if this was a delayed announcement or if I thought it was their third.
Oh, you know what? Let me see here. So it says Play Ventures raises $140 million second fund to invest games and startup. But then in the article from Mr. Takahashi, it said has raised $140 million for its third gaming fund. So
that's what I thought. Because I remember when the second was announced. Yeah,
right.
It's number 3, which is super cool. They've got a good name for themselves these days. Play.
Yeah, absolutely. And it said this fund represents Singapore-based Play Ventures' largest fund to date and brings its total assets under management to $450 million, which is awesome. And the new fund is important for the gaming industry, as Dean points out, which has had a tough 2.5 years with 33,000 layoffs during that time. Fund 3 will build upon Play Venture's successful strategy of investing in early-stage companies across the gaming ecosystem with a focus on mobile free-to-play, mobile consumer gaming infrastructure and platforms, AI-enhanced gaming tools, and next-generation distribution channels. So, more
stuff.
Yeah, more money that could come in to continue to fund innovation, fund new games, right? All of those things, super important, right?
Yeah,
Really,
yeah.
really important. So,
I mean, I think everything still has to change. We can't go back to where we were a few years ago with crazy money, crazy valuations, crazy expectations. Like, I like to hope, and certainly from conversations I've had with other founders, that there's like a focus now on like sustainability. And validating your ideas as quickly as possible before you go to market, keeping the team, to a size that is sustainable, maybe like less irresponsible hiring of, staffing up and staffing down, that kind of roller coaster.
And sticking with things that we look, we have to innovate, right? We have to continue to push forward. We have to continue to break barriers and all those things. But also continue to invest in things we know that works instead of constantly trying to disrupt our own cycles all the time would be really welcome. Which, of course, we saw in the Web3 and kind of play to earn sort of space. And then that kind of backed off and some investments started going to...
No, they're back. Don't you know? Web3 thinks it's back.
Oh, boy. Well, that remains to be seen. We'll see. Yeah, I know there's a lot of discussion still going on in Web3, and again, I am not. I think the technology is awesome. I'm just waiting for the use cases that demonstrate how it's going to make it better for the player, make it better for the ecosystem, make it better for the economics of creating and building, sustaining game development. That's all.
Look, the technology was always great.
Yeah.
The problem, I just had this conversation with somebody else who's no longer in Web3. The problem is that the good stuff, the reasons to do it, isn't the stuff that's capturing attention or making money, and so that really sucks. It's the scammy stuff, peeling bananas and hamsters on Telegram that is and axes of it's unfortunate.
Yes. I mean, look, well, speaking of Web3, we'll go ahead and pop up the website here again on another story on the front of GamesBeat. Mythical Games teams with FIFA to make Web3 mobile soccer game FIFA Rivals. I don't know any more other than the headline there. I do know Mythical Games, right? And very competent, experienced, game developer. Given what happened with EA and FIFA, right, and the brand then going to football club away from the FIFA brand, right, means that FIFA needs a toehold back in that space. It also proved that it was the quality of gameplay and the framework and the engagement and all of that actually is what made people come into play, not necessarily just the FIFA brand. Right.
Correct.
And so, I don't have any opinions other than to say this is interesting and looking forward.
I don't think a brand is enough enough in that sense. I think you're right. I think that sports fans are really, notoriously picky.
Yes.
I saw it firsthand, when I was involved in 2K Sports. It didn't matter that it didn't matter that Sega had the NFL rights, EA beat them over, and over and over again.
2K Sports, the best. 2K Sports. Oh, I remember when I got my Dreamcast and played the first 2K version of games. And for those of you that may not know the well, maybe you can. It's a good historical piece to talk about. So tell us briefly about 2K Sports and what you had done at that time.
Yeah. So Take-Two was in a transition where we were trying to be more than Rockstar and Grand Theft Auto, even though that should have been enough. But as a public company, it wasn't enough. Like, we weren't showing the meteoric growth anymore. And so Ryan had stepped away from running Take-Two at the time. And so we had a couple $100 million to put together a new label, which is really fun, right? Like, that's where most of what 2K is.
Just a little money.
Yeah. So we got BioShock that way. We got Borderlands. We got Civilization. We got the distribution rights to Oblivion from Bethesda. We had all these really cool deals. And in the midst of it, Sega was, getting kicked and kicked and kicked by EA on the sports side. So the opportunity came up to acquire the Sega Sports IP.
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember the meeting where we sat down with Greg Thomas and explained to him that our strategy, because we didn't have 2K yet, it was called Global Star at the time. Our plan was for Global Star to put out these sports games at $20. I don't know if you've ever met Craig. Craig is pretty confident of how much better than Madden he always had been. Like, it was like you punched a guy in the face. Like, and so that was the plan. It was, we were going to buy the sports games and we were going to charge $20 for it. And then later we bought the studios too. But that Christmas, GameStop, it worked like a charm. Said to anybody who came in and bought Madden, why don't you try this too for $20? It was just an upsell at the cash register.
Yep.
And we sold 5 million copies. This was like unheard of for like a non-Madden football game. Unfortunately, EA responded to this by buying the exclusives to NFL for, I heard, like $800 million.
Right. And so what I love, and I'm so glad you brought this up, right? It was the better game. It caused a delay of a Madden release for a year. And to your point, that is when EA went and locked up a 10-year exclusivity contract with the NFL for the brand. Now,
yes. Now, do you know what? This goes to show what happens when you have too much money. Because we spent $80 million buying Visual Concepts and Kush at that point. They spent $800 million buying the NFL rights. I have no doubt in my mind that they would have sold to EA instead.
Yeah.
And that would have been the 2K Sports before it even happened.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the other thing too, right? But yeah, just a few hundred million. I mean, so you were doing it for a 10th. You actually build a product and a game, which, by the way, is a great lesson to learn that you can still build stuff even today that can completely take on juggernauts and disrupt a market, right? And we've seen that happen in a variety of different ways. So it's important to remember, right, that just because you may be small, of course, $80 million is not exactly small, but with smaller, right, than those big ones, you can still go ahead and compete and actually force some change to happen there. And I also know that, if you remember when the Xbox first launched, they had their own sports titles, sports division, everything else. But the problem was the sharing of customer data back and forth. So the only way that they could get those games onto Xbox was to shutter their sports division, right? Microsoft, so they could go and get EA and
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then there was the Sony, let's not forget Sony Sports and the famous interview with Tom Russo and Kelly Flock about Madden and dribbling down mattresses.
Yeah,
lights. You remember that?
Mr. Flock, who was amazing, and one of the very first executives.
Rest in peace, right?
Rest in peace, yeah. Him. And actually, I just came across Bernie Stolar's business card on my my workbench in the basement where I
can do better though. I've got the card from the gift he sent me when my son was born.
Okay. All right.
Come on, right?
Right. So, okay. Yeah, that's a good flex. That one is a, hey, congrats to you. That was a good flex right there. For sure. But yeah, so now, again, so remember, the brands can get you so far because if the brand is imbued with quality and understood that way, and then consumers, it becomes easier to engage consumers. But that doesn't mean they're infallible. Doesn't mean that they're completely ironclad, right? So you can still disrupt with a great idea, a better game, right? And out of the box sort of thinking. All right. So that is a big one, a big piece of news there as well, that Mythical Games teams with FIFA to make Web3 mobile soccer games. So we'll see what that's going to be, right? And how it's going to stand up to FC series, right? Nell Christian says, and please let me know if I pronounced your name correctly in the chat. I will say 2K Football had great commercials with Tracy Morgan.
That's right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love Tracy Morgan or Tracy Jordan, depending on whether or not you watch 30 Rock or not. But yeah, amazing. All right, so another big piece of news that hit the front of GamesBeat was Star Wars Outlaws rolls out more changes and fixes in a bid for more buys. So Ubisoft today rolled out new updates for its recent action-adventure title, Star Wars Outlaws, alongside the launch of its Wild Card Story DLC. The new fixes address multiple concerns from players about the game's combat and stealth while also improving AI. Wait a minute, games use AI now? Not that we haven't been using it for 35 years. All in the name of punching. Oh, which reminds me, this is the perfect serendipitous tie between that comment and EA right after the story. All in the name of punching up the title ahead of the holidays by Ubisoft's own admission. The game also launches today on Steam. Have you played any of the newer Star Wars games, Susan?
I have not. I am very out of touch on Star Wars games. Have you?
Yeah, I have. The Jedi Fallen Order series are amazing. I mean, really think like Uncharted level visuals and set pieces with traditional Tomb Raider style, traversal and puzzle solving, but all wrapped in a really cool Star Wars universe, not, adjacent to, the principal Jedi, canon and that kind of stuff. Oh my goodness. It is so, it grabs you right from the beginning and you're like, all right, how is this all happening right on the screen right now? So yeah, there were some bugs and there's of course some gameplay hitches, but in the body of the whole piece of art, those are minor gripes. I love them. I love the two games, and I do want to dig into Star Wars Outlaws. I just hadn't had the chance or time really recently to go ahead and do it, but yeah, definitely want to go ahead and jump in on that too.
Very cool.
Yes.
You promised something to do with AI there.
I do. So I'm going to look that up while you go ahead and talk about the next piece of news. What's the next piece of news that...
I was curious what your thoughts are. I'm seeing a lot about web games, WebGL suddenly, like Telegram announced all sorts of new features for web support. Unity, obviously, Unity 6 supports web better than it used to. What do you think? Like, you're a guy to have an opinion on that. What do you think?
Yeah, I've got opinions.
It's a near and dear to your heart thing, right?
Yeah, so what I would say is... Pardon my French. Yeah, no shit. Yes, you can build actual games and deliver real experiences through the browser because this is the big, I think, disconnect that people have when we think about browsers and games, stuff like that, is it used to be, well, we're going to do these really casual little games, right, in HTML or in a wrapper in HTML. But because of limitations of access to hardware, access to APIs, right, access to lower level system functions, bigger cache sizes, and those sorts of things, you were limited in what you could do, right? It was about commerce. It was about static information really on the web during those eras. But we all remember, well, not all of us, but many of us remember, oh, do you remember playing pool on Yahoo Games? Or do you remember playing, mini clip games? Do you remember, or earlier Newground games, that kind of stuff, right? And so what used to drive me nuts is when you'd have people say, oh, well, that's good for a web game. No, it's just a good game, right? It just happened to be delivered on the web. Now we're starting to see more companies really lean into the changes and the advances that have been made with HTML5 and things like WebGL and WebAssembly that really now just have the browser act as a container for the delivery of this game. And so when you're playing the game, even though it's in the browser, it's fully running as a native application. It just happens to be through the browser. Now, here's the thing. I've been at AWS now for over 4 years. I spent 7.5 years prior to that at Verizon. And back then, during those Verizon days, I was leading a team Mark Delora was working with me actually on this, and we were exploring actually doing full-ass UE4 games in a browser, and it works. Like, you can do it right now. Getting it down to mobile, right? You have to make some trade-offs and those sorts of things. But, one of the articles that came up here, right? QuickSave announces QS app to make WebGL more accessible through no-code editors. So not only helping to create games that run in the browser, but also low-code, no-code tools in which to create these applications. Susan, I know you probably shared the same sort of feelings with me about this. There's nothing, new, right? Under the sun, and in games. And of course I say Sun, I always think Sun Microsystems. But when you go back and look at what like Macromedia was doing with Flash and Director and those types of things, right? Using editors to go ahead and create these experiences, we're kind of back there again. When I look at things like node-based development through blueprints in Unreal or the Open 3D engine, which, don't forget that's sitting out there too. We are now putting the power of creation really into the hands of not just programmers, but creatives, right? And allowing more people to get there. But marrying that with HTML5 and WebGL means that you provide a low friction way to play that content. So it doesn't matter that you're on an Android device or an iOS device. It doesn't matter that you're on a Linux box or Windows box or a Mac. They just work. And so now when you start to think about the type of experiences you can create, it's instant access through the web, locally rendered, and nobody gets left out. That's incredibly powerful. Like, it's the thing that's going to lash it all together. Now I'm going to get off my soapbox, but as I'm jumping off of it, I'm going to say that I always say that the closest thing that we have, right, to the Babelfish in games, right, or rather on the internet, is the browser. It is a universal translator, and it's on every connected device that you buy. From smart TVs that display, your video streaming service, it's an HTML5 frame, right? There's no app there.
The problem in practice, it's like I asked you. It's like we set this up, isn't it? You're like,
I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah. Sorry, you asked for an opinion, and I gave you an entire diatribe.
That said, in practice, as a team, because we were messing around quite a bit with Babylon JS some time ago over the last year. We had horrible issues trying to get it to do stuff that we thought it could do, like in terms of actually making games. It wasn't fit to purpose, which is why I'm excited that Unity 6 is, because that's also been a big holdup, was Unity supporting it. But it's still not 100% there yet. So it feels to me, as a complete non-techie, that the two issues are the engine's getting to where it needs to be and taking it seriously as a platform and offering all the bells and whistles that you can get from a client, a downloadable. And secondly, the distribution side of it, like figuring out discovery and things like that for web games as opposed to stores. But look, discovery is broken everywhere, so I can't hear you, Chris.
I went ahead and fired this up because I promised that I would. Let me see. Can I? It's going to ask me to log in here. Why are you going to do that to me, Facebook? I don't want to do that right now. All right, let's go ahead. So what I wanted to bring us back, let's rewind that, and which is another show that I do every Friday afternoon at 3:30 on the AWS for Game channels on YouTube and Twitch, is Rewind. Trip Hawkins, the founder or co-founder.
We're talking about all the oldies today, aren't we?
That's right. The co-founder of Electronic Arts and the guy who was really responsible for connecting John Madden to them and building out Madden football. He has been posting some of his personal artifacts, and on Facebook, he has, first of all, incredible handwriting, which is just crazy. But in here, in these notes, he goes in and talks about the randomization algorithms and stuff like that were the underpinning for Madden football. So things like R&D is a random number function, returns a random value between 0.011 and 0.999, e.g. a dice roll. Please follow the program logic exactly as shown, or you'll screw up the percentages. Please drop blah, blah, blah. So he goes in and talks about how they were calculating the variables for offensive and defensive plays and running. And so he's showing the math that they use to go ahead and create the intelligence for the game. So it didn't require artificial intelligence. They used,
I knew that's where this was going.
right? They used actual intelligence, right? Another AI, actual intelligence, right, to make those algorithms. And I love that when we say there's nothing new under the sun, yes, these tools are going to help us to be better, but it doesn't replace the things that we've already been doing. It's just going to help to make those better, right? More efficient, allow us to do more with the time that we've got. So anyway, I thought that was just...
It takes away
lovely.
the mundane tasks, you know? I mean...
Yes, or like we'd like to say, the undifferentiated tasks, right? And when we say undifferentiated, it doesn't mean they aren't of high value. It just means that they are the things that are in the way, that are required, that are in the way for you to get to do the things that you want to do, right? Yes. And so that's why I've mentioned them before on the show is Crikey AI. Incredible company that basically can take video footage and then create the rigging of a skeletal model based on that movement that you could then wrap your mesh around. And now you can give that to an animator and they can just fine tune it, right? And really create the animations for that. So it takes away all of that setup and everything else and just hands that rigged model to an animator. And I think that's fantastic. Right? The animator doesn't want to have to do all of that rigging and create that model underneath. They need to do it, right? So we're gonna take those things away so they can.
As controversial as it always is, I found that artists are some of the folks who are most excited about AI because of the fact that it can allow them to visualize stuff without having to do the mundane task of doing it over and over again. You get to sort of almost there, and you know it's like pre-visualization, you know, in film. It's useful.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. All right. What is up next on the docket? And if you all have any questions or news stories that you think that we should be aware of or can comment on, please go ahead and hit us in the chat there and let us know what that is. I've also been monitoring the audio of this externally, and it sounds great now. So we finally got all the kinks worked out of our system, which is great.
It does sound great. Yeah. What else is going on? I don't know.
Well, let's see. NVIDIA unveils Omniverse real-time physics digital twins, which I think is pretty extraordinary as well, right? So being able...
Have you read up on this?
So being able to actually perform those physics tests or measurements against objects live versus having to pre-render or wait is a huge leap forward. It still requires a tremendous amount of compute to do it, but it's going to really cut down on the time for these very, very complex, calculation sort of activities to be done in real time now. It's just going to save a ton of time for developers that are building and testing models and things like that in using Omniverse, right? And for digital twins specifically, when you start to think about even non-game applications like in robotics and AMRs and 6 Degree of Freedom drones and all that kind of stuff, right? Being able to model those physics in real time in Omniverse is pretty awesome. Wow. Yeah, so I think it's going to be pretty cool.
I saw that AMD is doing a layoff and realigning themselves to compete with NVIDIA on the AI graphics card.
Yeah, you would think though, with all of the stuff they've had in
AI
ARM and
compute power.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff that they've had in ARM and everything else, and the pervasiveness of their processors and everything. But that that's the business to be in, but which it is. Yeah. But all of that continues to drive down in terms of price, right?
Yeah.
So. Yes, you have to exponentially more to be able to go ahead and make up the delta there. And so, yeah, this is the place to go ahead and play. And it's a realignment of resources to go ahead and provide more competition in the space, which is always good for everybody. But you always hate to see when people get impacted and their jobs get impacted by this, So our best
I don't
of
think it
luck.
was massive. I think it was like 5%, which isn't.
I know. And we talk about those
5%.
I know we talk about those percentages, right? But for this single person who may have never been laid off before that caught up in it, that's always the toughest
1,000
part.
people. That's what it was. It was 1,000 people. But yeah, absolutely. And I can't imagine the pressure AMD must be under from its board, looking at the value of NVIDIA.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So anyway, really cool to see NVIDIA continuing to invest in these spaces, invest in the digital twin and virtualized spaces, and lean more into open source and opening up different models and frameworks and APIs, right, to open source communities.
Yes.
So I do love that. I do love that. All right.
Yeah, same.
All right. What else do we got? Let's see.
Looking rapidly.
What's that?
I'm looking online rapidly while we're talking. Let's see.
Well, let's see here. Okay. The
Bully could be getting an update. I wonder if Lee knows that.
Who
Bully
is?
could be getting a new update too. Bully. Lee worked on Bully.
Oh, okay. Tell
Bully?
us.
Rumor
some
has
stories.
it that
I'm gonna sit. I'm just gonna sit back with my tea while you tell us some Bully stories.
Rumor has it could be getting a new update. So this was when we were at Take Two, when we were starting 2K. Lee had to move to Vancouver for a year to redesign Bully, which was about to be cut entirely.
Really?
Yeah, and he and a few others had to go up there and try to save the project, essentially, which ended up being a reasonable hit for it. I don't think Bully was ever like blockbuster level. It certainly wasn't GTA level, but it was school days. Was what Sam and Terry always wanted. I think it reminded them of their boarding school days in the UK.
What I think so.
Do you remember Bully?
Yeah, I do. Now, what I do remember about the game, right? I didn't play through the whole thing at the time, but what I do remember is at the time that this was released, it allowed for flexibility in the relationships of the characters, where you could have same gender relationships, right, in the game, and that for the time that Bully was released was very progressive, right? Really
absolutely.
Way ahead of.
I didn't even remember that. Did it?
Yeah.
Ask me about that now.
And in fact, there is if you check out the bully.fandom.com site on the Bully Wiki, they talk about the different relationships that Jimmy can have with female characters and other male characters. And it says here, after passing this first art class, Jimmy can kiss one boy from each clique. He must be on friendly terms, 55 respect or higher with the clique, and have flowers in his inventory to give them. The 6 kissable boys are Trent Northwick, Gord Vendome, Cornelius Johnson, Vance Medici, Kirby Olsen, and Duncan. And he gets the same health bonus points for kissing boys. So again,
I wish Lee hadn't left the room. We could have talked about this.
Yeah, but what I think really good again was, exploring the human condition, right, and who we are as human beings, and allowing that representation to happen in the game. It again was just really ahead of the curve and really cool.
Absolutely, yeah.
Really, really cool. Representation matters, folks. It absolutely does. So very, very cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wait and check out the remake of Bully. So,
update. It's just a rumor, so I don't know what that's about.
Okay, yeah. Well, if anyone knows if there's any validity to the rumors, let us know.
Oh, I know what I wanted to talk about, and then this is like not exactly core gaming, but what is going on with the New York Times game folks? Like people don't like them right now.
Really?
Have you followed this at all?
No.
Yeah. So I've heard, first, like 3 weeks ago, the team called for a boycott. They were striking and saying that there was like unfair treatment. I think that women were being paid less than men. There were all sorts of issues with how they've been running, the Wordle app thing that they do.
Right.
And that was the first I heard. And then I heard, I don't know where he read this. I heard in the last couple of days that they're suing some like educational company from doing something like collections as a browser game.
Oh, that's right. I do remember seeing this because I tried to play the Frogger game that they made about the
Yeah.
strike in a mobile browser, but it works in a desktop browser, but they never got the controls right in the mobile browser, right?
Oh, that's too bad.
But
So yeah, I don't know what's happening there, but it sounds really bad.
yeah, striking New York Times. So I've got the page up here from Fast Company.
Okay.
Striking New York Times workers are asking you to skip Wordle, but they made other games for you to play. The New York Times Tech Guild is striking for a contract which they've been negotiating for more than 2 years. So New York Times tech workers are still on strike after walking out one day before the presidential election. That means they're still asking people to skip their usual crossword, Wordle, or connections routines. But now the union has released its own offerings for game lovers that could keep them from crossing the digital picket line. And so, yeah, they created a couple of these games here. Frogger 8th Avenue, Scabby's Fair, Contract Builder, and Trivia and Jokes, right? So there's several of them that they've created. But
they're being very litigious, is what I've heard as well.
That the Times are being litigious.
The New York Times are being very litigious. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know more than.
Yeah, I've been trying to find out more because I do like that app. It makes me feel smarter than I am.
So you know what I love is when Wordle popped, right? I mean, you all remember the context in which Wordle came out, right? During the pandemic.
Yeah.
And the developer made the game for his partner who loved word games. And so
yes, I do remember
right?
that.
So he made this game, but then all these other variants came up. And a friend of mine made a version, Anthony Lemus, so shout out to Anthony. He made a version called Winnle. So it didn't matter what word you typed in at first, you just won. Like, it's like you always get it on the first try.
Just instant gratification.
Yeah, it was called Winnle. And I do know that Gary Whitta had done a version that was just nothing but swear words from in different languages, right? And which was just hysterical.
That's very clever. Yeah.
Oh, that was so good. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so I don't know more about it, but definitely something to go in and check up on. Right, with regard to
every time Lee sees me have the app open, he's like, "You're not supposed to play that."
Exactly, Susan. What are you doing?
Yeah, you're a bad person. Like,
no, you are not at all. Not at all.
Got me a little bit into Sudoku, which has never been my thing, but
yeah. So what is the one where it's kind of like it's not a cross between it's not really Sudoku, but it's a little bit of like Minesweeper, but Sudoku in terms of the way you have to count the numbers out. And it's they're all like pixel-based art, so you have to figure out where the pixels go.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
Right?
Yeah.
And really big on Nintendo platforms and mobile platforms and stuff like that. And I have a bunch of them. And now pick something another. Anyway, I love those games too. And it's always it drives you nuts when you're like, oh, I can't count apparently because I put all these pixels in the wrong damn spot. So what am I doing with myself?
Well, this is like Sudoku. I mastered the easy ones, and then I moved to medium.
Yes.
And then what I found is sometimes you get all the way just about to the end, and it's maddening to try to figure out where you screwed up. It's like you almost just have to start over again.
Yeah, and I don't have to pay. This is why I don't like RTS games. I don't have the patience for it. I'm just like, okay, I messed it up. On to something else. Just give me something with just one big red button.
I made that one
press.
tactical error.
Right. Let me just press this one big red button and be done with it, right?
Yeah. I did hear that they're remastering Warcraft 1 and 2.
Oh,
3, I think. I read that the other day. There's a thing. Yeah, I loved my Warcraft back in the day. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Rick Tet here in chat said, I'm hooked on letterboxed NYT games. Getting it in 2 words is hard. It is. It is. And that's why I never shared my scores with people.
Which one? I always forget what they're called. Which one is the letterboxed one?
I'm not sure. Rick, if you
is that where you have to connect? That's where you have to connect the letters around the thing in as few words as possible. I think that's what Rick's talking about.
Perhaps. Yeah. Rick, let us know if
I got into that one.
Yeah. And then now Christian said, I'm currently hooked on Rummy Cube. Oh my goodness. Remember Rummy Cube back in the day?
Yeah. We grew up playing that, like the physical board
The
game version of
physical
it.
one,
Yeah.
exactly.
Ah,
Boggle. You remember Boggle too? You shake the container with the
yeah.
letters and you get them all in. And half the challenge was getting them all fit in the grid that they're supposed to be
Oh,
in.
yeah, the ridiculous grid, yeah. Or Yahtzee. Or
Oh,
have you played the what is it, King of whatever that's like Yahtzee for the modern era? Do you know what I'm talking about? King of Kong or whatever it's called?
no,
King of
no.
King of Tokyo. King of Tokyo.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
We were
I was
just
like,
playing
King
this
of
the other
Kong.
day. Yeah, King of Tokyo is awesome. It's a really good, easy to pick up and play board game.
Nice.
Um, it feels like Yahtzee because you roll a whole bunch of dice each
Yeah,
time and you decide what you want to keep. And
Yahtzee's a popular game in our home. My wife consistently beats me at Yahtzee. That and Connect Four. She is just a champion at Connect Four. But I have like 8 different versions of Yahtzee. The deluxe version, I have the
really,
Pac-Man version. I've got like all these different
oh,
versions
that
of
doesn't
Yahtzee
surprise
at
me.
home. I know, right?
I
Yeah.
can,
Not that I'm a nerd or anything. And Rick Tet also says, yes, you got that exactly right. The letterboxed games.
yeah, it is
Exactly right.
fun. It is fun.
Exactly right.
We're playing our board game group. We play board games once a week. My husband and I, and my sister-in-law and her husband, and on the third set of Pandemic Legacy. We started with I don't know if
Oh,
you played Pandemic
yeah, yeah,
Legacy.
yeah.
We started with 2 because it was that just came out, and then we went back and played the prequel, and now we're finally playing the very original Pandemic 1. And
Nice.
it was getting really easy. We really had mastered it. And then last night we lost in such epic glory that you just can't possibly imagine. We were literally one move away from winning. I was about to have my turn. I was about to finish the last objective, and the Fallen just covered South America, and it just wouldn't end. It was just like this trickling effect, and I've never seen anything like it. It was the worst loss ever last night.
Oh,
I
oh.
love Pandemic.
Well, I
So
would
that
see
that
now.
was
We do play board games in our home, but the board games we typically play are ones that are well worn and understood. You know, life and those
oh,
sorts of things. My
you gotta
family.
try the modern stuff. There's so
I
many good
know,
board
but
games out there, Chris.
it's getting them to play, and I keep buying them, but nobody
Okay.
ever wants to play. Except that I did I backed a Kickstarter a couple of years ago, the Return to Dark Tower, and the Dark Tower game. If those of you remember, this came out in the 1980s, and it was only in the market for a short period of time. The
I
company,
remember
Milton
it.
Bradley, got sued by the guy who invented it because he had pitched the game to the company. They refused it. Then they made it. And so it got pulled off the market. So copies were going for $600 or $700 on eBay if you were going to get them. And then this company went ahead and remade the game. But Restoration Games was the company, and it uses an iPad. And it's got this tower that glows, it makes noises, and it spits out skulls all over the playfield and everything else. And for a birthday one year, I told my family, I don't want any presents or anything. I just want everybody to sit down and play this game with me. There was a lot of hemming and hawing about it,
Oh
and then, but
no.
after playing, they're like, "Okay, that was pretty cool." But here's the gift. One of my daughters. Her boyfriend was like, "Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to coming up to the house and everything, and we're gonna play Dark Tower this Thanksgiving, right?" I'm like, "Hell yes, yes!" So now I've got a cohort, right, in the family unit here that is going to help to push for that. So I'm looking forward to playing
That's amazing.
Return to Dark Tower over the
Well,
break here. It's an
Lee's
amazing
Christmas
game.
present, one of his big Christmas presents, I think 2 years ago now,
Yeah.
was Marvel United,
Hmm.
on which we had some of. I don't know if you played Marvel United. It's a pretty epic scale board game. And he finally got the Kickstarter delivery like
Oh.
a month ago. Oh my God, I should take some pictures of this. Like you could have filled our dining room table with everything that came in the post with this.
Oh.
Any Marvel character you can imagine, bosses that were like these, like they look like they've been 3D printed, these crazy things. So we haven't started it yet. It's like a year's worth of gaming, apparently.
Okay. All right. So see, I'm
You
that's the
love
kind of.
Looker, I think, Chris.
So I'm going to share my what we're playing. I'm going to share a story about that when we wrap up here with what have we been playing. But getting it back to So I have two things to remember to tell you as we wrap up the show. But getting back to news topics, there was another one I wanted to make sure that we touched on today, which is the Indie Game Awards make their debut on December 19th. Is an awards-only ceremony dedicated to celebrating excellence in indie gaming. Make its debut on December 19th at, let's see, the inaugural ceremony will honor outstanding achievements in categories such as innovation, storytelling, artistry, and more throughout the indie scene. The countdown to the IGA begins today, which was November 19th, actually. And the IGAs are built on the foundation of collaboration, bringing together voices from games media, content creator showcases, and game development within the indie scene. And the judging committee includes folks from Giant Bomb, Spawn on Me, Wanderbots, Ash Said Hi, Playcrafting, and other prominent voices from the indie space. So the nominees here, I've only played a couple of these games, but now I want to go play all of them, right?
I know, I'm looking as you're saying this. Yeah. Wow, this is really cool.
1,000 Time Resist, Animal Well, excellent game, a just stunningly beautiful game, and in its style, just really, really cool. Arco, is it pronounced Balatro? I think that's how it's pronounced.
Balatro, yeah,
yes.
That's been very popular.
Yes, very. Crypt Custodian, Lauralee and the Laser Eyes, Mouthwashing, Nevia, Nine Souls, and UFO 50. Have you played UFO 50?
No.
It's like 50 classic, like retro style games, but with modern kind of gameplay sensibilities all in one package.
I've heard of this.
Yes.
I've heard of this.
So good. This. It was one of Amir Satvat's, like, this is the game you should be playing, sort of thing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Really, really cool. And the Indie Game Awards will premiere on December 19th at 4 p.m. Pacific via IGN and the 6-1 Indie YouTube channel. So great. More visibility on independent game development. I love it. Absolutely love it.
Lovely. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, that's super cool.
It is. Very, very cool stuff.
Yeah, I need to get myself to try Balatro. Like, loads of my team swore by it. And I'm not really into poker, which I understand you don't really have to be. But I do love a roguelike. So
yeah. Yep. Okay, and I'm going through here and kind of seeing if there were any other big news pieces here. One that I would recommend everybody go ahead and take a look at, and it's on the front page of GamesBeat, of course. I'll just pop it up here. Again, is the interview that Dean Takahashi did with Peter Moore at the GamesBeat Next Summit at the end of October. So for those of you that may know Peter through, well, just his name, or he was around for the Xbox 360 and all that other stuff.
Sega.
Yes, the CEO of Sega of America. Peter is not only a legend in the industry, he is just one of the nicest people too. Wickedly smart, very generous with his time and counsel, and just really an awesomely approachable human being. To that point, I'll share this. I don't know if I ever told you this story. My first official games industry event, meaning that I was in the industry getting paid to do shit right within the game space, was the Game Executive Summit in Monterey.
Sure, right? I remember that.
This was in 2000, I think. And that is when
I was there.
And that is when Peter took over and this is right before the Xbox was going to be announced at GDC just 2 months later. And he had just assumed the role of like president of Sega of America. And I'm just this excitable guy. Like, I'm so happy to be here. And oh my God, I can't believe that I'm at this conference and I'm going to meet all my heroes. And, it's also where I met Christian Svensson for the first time and all that stuff. So there's Peter on stage preparing for his talk. And I was just like, okay, well, he's just rehearsing. I'm just going to go up and introduce myself. So I just walked up on the stage in the middle of his rehearsal when there was a little gap there, introduced myself to him, told him, what a fan of Sega I was, looking forward to working with them while I was at Sun. Boom, 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 boom. as you know, Susan, I am a digital pack rat. I'm a historian pack rat as well. I still have a copy of the presentation that he gave at that conference.
Oh, I love
And
it.
I unearthed it and scanned it in, and then I sent it to him, a couple of years ago, just going, by the way, do you remember this? And it was like, why do you even have this sort of thing? And I'm just like, because it's important to remember. And I remember, let's see if I can get it right. One of the comments that he made in there about marketing and channel was like, well, I'm going to screw it up. So I will save it for the next time and I'll go look at it. But it's something like, tuning the channel is finding the audience and the volume is the advertising. And that's the way you need to think about how you're, doing all this stuff. But he is just, again, he is one of my favorite people in games and
ran a football club. Let's not forget.
Ran a football club.
Crossed out and ran a football club. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the article, they talk about, him starting off selling shoes, right?
Yeah.
To then basically helping to bring some of the best consoles we've ever had, right, to the world. So, and he's awesome. So definitely go ahead and check that out.
I will have to read that. I missed that.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, those are really the bigger beats that kind of caught my eye. This time of year, it's always difficult to stay on top of everything because there's so much going on as we roll into the end of the year, Oh, I did find out that Roblox is opening up an office in Washington, D.C. So they're going to be right down the street here from where I'm located. And I'm like, man, we need to go ahead and do a boss rush from Roblox, right? We need to go do some sort of recording from there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, neat.
So, I mean, I don't have much more other than, what have you been playing? Now you're playing a bunch of board games, but what else have you been playing? Games. Any game related?
Mainly board games. We've been playing, I think I mentioned this before, we reinstalled World of Warcraft, which is probably the craziest thing I've ever done because, it just takes too much time. That game, my God, it's been 25 years since it came out or something like that.
Know.
I cannot believe how massive, because we played it when it first came out and then, left for years and years and years. And so it's wild how that game has continued to grow and mature, and it's still buggy as hell, all hell. But but it's been fun to go back and replay it. Lee and I have always gotten a kick out of playing MMOs together. We played EverQuest during its beta.
Oh,
that's how old. And so it's been really fun to go back.
Well, at least it was EverQuest and not Meridian 59.
No, I never played Meridian 59.
So many of the people that worked on that, I think, went over and then worked on EverQuest too, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Now I'm really dating myself.
If you play MMOs, for me, it's never had the nothing has ever beat early EverQuest.
Yeah.
In terms of that.
I have a very, very close friend. His wife, his girlfriend at the time, she would play WoW as well. And I remember I was on the phone with him one day and I hear in the background, like, yes. And I'm like, and he's like, all right, awesome. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, oh, she just hit like level 60. And I'm like, you guys suck. Like, my wife has no interest in playing video games at all, even though both of our wives have shared the same name. I'm like, yeah. Yours are the same and very different than mine. I remember, okay, now this is going to strike right at the heart for you with the 2K. I remember when NFL 2K1 came out and I had it on in our family room and I'm like, just look at this. Look how amazing this looks. And the stadium is coming in, the camera's panning in, the crowd's there and you hear everything. Then when it got down to the characters, she's like, yeah, but they don't look real. And I'm like, why don't you see what I see? She's like, okay, yeah, go, enjoy. And I said I had two things to tell you, and now I forgot what they were. My goodness. Well, one of them is from what you've been playing. So I'm sorry, you said that you reinstalled World of Warcraft, and so you're playing that, and then your board games. Do you have a board game coming up this weekend? Like, what are you playing?
We played yesterday. We play once a week typically.
Okay.
And so we're in the last 3 months of pandemic.
Right, pandemic. Yeah.
We should have finished October last night. We didn't, and we're trying to get onto the Marvel game Lee doesn't know. I got him some new board game that's come out, and now I'm forgetting what it's called. But it's basically a send up of Animal Farm. You play as the animal. It looks really good. I came across it. It's someone who worked on Cards Against Humanity, of all things.
Okay.
Created this game, so I bought this. Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, that'll be on the list too.
And a heavy set of material, you know.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
That is very cool. That is very cool. Mr. Subotnik has just joined the chat there.
It was his birthday the other day.
That's right.
It was his birthday the other day.
That's right. Happy birthday to Mr. Subotnik. Oh, look at that. We have a whole crowd cheering for you. Thank you, studio audience. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. So with the stuff I've been playing, I'm still playing through Super Mario, Thousand Year Door, and all that stuff, and of course retro games, right? But I just went and picked up a new 3D printer. And
did you?
Yes, I did. And oh my gosh, you know, it's funny. You know, I'd started out 3D printing about 7 or 8 years ago, and just modified my stuff. Oh, you're welcome, Bot. He was like, the 15th was his, not that he's 15 years old, but it was on the 15th, was his birthday. And so I was like, okay, you know, I know how to make it do everything I wanted to do, blah, 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 blah. The tech has come so far in that amount of time that the printer that I got literally took it out of the box, set it up, fed filament into it, and then was just like, print, and it just printed the first print perfectly.
That's amazing. So you didn't have to level it or anything?
Nothing.
There is auto leveling.
Nothing to. Wow. There is nothing to do, and now I've got it set up on a remote switch, so I can literally turn it on from my cell phone from wherever I am. Go ahead and load up a file on my phone, push to it, and then watch it printing from my phone anywhere in the world. So you can keep tabs on it, and then just shut it down when it's done. Like,
if folks don't know, Chris is like Chris set us up. Like during COVID, we decided that we needed to do something to help. So we bought a 3D printer and started making masks based on Chris's design. It was your design or someone's design.
Yeah, I found the design and we modified it a little bit, but yeah, we were all printing masks and straps for real like masks with what is the N95 filter
for your
material.
ears, right? To protect your ears.
Yeah, and then the straps to protect your ears and stuff. And we're pushing those out. It was just wonderful to see the community kind of come together to do that. But yeah, but you all
we have a resin printer now. I don't know if we told you. We got a resin printer. We're using the non-toxic stuff. He's still a little bit freaked out by it, but it's good. The stuff is so heavy. The stuff is so heavy that comes out of it compared to a regular 3D printer.
Well, yeah, I mean, this thing is amazing. Somebody else in the chat here said, Rick said, hey, what printer, Chris? It is a Bamboo P1S. And then, of course, see, I could have gone with the X1C, which is their flagship one, right? But I'm like, oh, it's got LiDAR, so it'll go ahead and look at the first layer. No, I don't need that, right? Oh, it has a 1080p camera and 720. Well, I'm not live streaming, my prints. I don't care about that. Oh, well, that one has a touchscreen. Well, this company made a $60 touchscreen for the printer that I got. The whole printer with the automatic feeder, so you can put 4 different colors, so you can do multi-material printing. You can hook up to 16 filaments into this thing.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
With the AMS and the printer was like $850, which is not cheap, but it is a far cry from the $3,000 or $4,000 that would have been just 5 years ago.
Yeah,
and the tech just keeps getting cheaper and cheaper all the time and just keeps getting better and better. So how it's tied to games? Oh, you can spend a whole lot more retro game stuff that I'm going to be printing, projects that I'm going to be doing. I have somebody made a Donkey Kong STL set that lets you create like this 2-foot by 1-foot picture frame that's all done like the Donkey Kong girders, and it's 3-dimensional like Donkey Kong elements in there, and you glue it to a piece of plexiglass and you hang it on the wall. I'm like, oh yes. Oh yes, awesome. There is about to be a lot of this stuff around my house. So, oh yeah, Bot was saying that they just got that one as well. Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing. It's the closest that I've seen now to just unpack, print, and off you go. So
That's
I am
cool.
loving. So not so much games, but it's tech, and of course I'm going to find a way to tie it into retro games and all kinds of stuff too. So I'll take pictures and share them as we go along.
Sweet.
But that's about it. So, we're going to, we're getting ready for the holidays next week. I am going to be back in studio the day after Thanksgiving to do this show and, of course, to do Rewind as well. I don't know if my colleagues are going to be there. I wouldn't expect them to, since it is, Thanksgiving, but I'm committed to getting this done, and we'll get some stuff put together. But that's going to wrap it up for this week. Susan.
Thanksgiving this year is my wedding anniversary, as it sometimes is.
Oh, it's your anniversary?
Our wedding anniversary on Thursday, yeah.
Okay, what number is this?
26.
Woo! Yay!
Is that wild or what? Yeah, our 26th wedding anniversary. So I won't be on next Friday because we've got a bit of a weekend of stuff going on around the anniversary.
And everybody does. I don't expect anybody else to, but I'll be here. So if you're listening and just want to come and hang out and talk about video game news and all that stuff, I will be here. So Susan, thank you so much for coming in and hanging out today. Thanks everybody for joining this week's Boss Rush. And for those of you that do celebrate the holiday, wish you a very happy Thanksgiving. Have a safe one, right? And it's the perfect time of year to just be thankful we get to get together and to talk with each other and to be. So, lean into that. I get very melancholy around this time of year too, and just very appreciative for my friends, my family, colleagues, and community, and for those that choose to spend time with us. So thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day, and check out 3:30 p.m. Eastern, the Rewind Retro Video Game Show on the AWS channels for YouTube and Twitch. I'm going to be playing full motion video games. That title always confuses me.
Oh my God.
If it's not full motion, how can it not be video? That never made sense to me. But we're going to be playing some of those games from 3DO and comparing them to the Sega CD versions and just seeing how beautifully terrible they were. So yeah.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your day and awesome weekend. Happy holidays, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, gang.